hat that he had made for me with Eamon's number on it. I had the good fortune. I hope you hear me because my internet's a little what they call unstable, as am I. But I had the good fortune of obviously playing with Eamon and being a great friend and teammate. And I was able to talk to the team on 9/11. Coach Moran did something the next day, but he was unavailable, and we did a Zoom thing. So that was really interesting and really cool for me to spend an hour with the team to do that. So when this came up, I really thought that a guy like Tom Marino, who's, by the way, got twice as many national championships as me, had the opportunity to play with Eamon for 2 seasons and win 2 national championships. And by the way, he only lost 1 game during his career. So I thought it was pretty good. I know how close they were as well. So I wanted to bring Tommy in to kind of give his perception and his, input as to what a guy like Eamon McEnany meant to the Cornell culture and the Cornell program. So I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Mike. First, I'd like to congratulate my fellow teammates, Cornell Athletics, and the Cornell community on the 1976 National Champion Distinction Award for the championship team. So we're all pretty happy to get that. I'm very fortunate to have played with a great group of athletes, but I think even more importantly, they were a great group of teammates. And we had total respect, total trust, and would do anything for each other. No one was a greater teammate than Eamon, and that's on and off the field. He was intense, let's start there, but he brought a level of intensity to everything he did. It didn't matter. Sports, poetry, everything he did. Conversation about a book, it would be intense. And pound for pound, he was probably the toughest guy I ever known. He certainly was the toughest guy on the team. But his intensity impacted us all. It always did. It still impacts me now. It was infectious. And he made us all better because of that. I will admit the intensity got in the way quite a few times also, but that was all part of the package. One story that I just wanted to pass on, and Coach Moran will appreciate this story, I'm sure. And I'm sure everyone remembers it a little differently. But it was halftime during the 1976 championship game. We're playing Maryland up in Providence, and we were down 7-2 at half, and we had a very, very flat first half. Richie, during halftime, was trying to get everyone pumped up, get them psyched for the second half, working hard, getting everyone going. And just before we break the huddle to go back on the field, Eamon chimes up. And the only thing he said was, the only difference between us and them is that we love each other. I know a tear came to my eye. There was an immediate deflation, if you will, sort of an emotional silence that took place. I thought Coach Moran was going to have a heart attack because he had just worked so hard to get everyone going again. But as Eamon does, and as his leadership, and especially through intensity, usually does, it impacted us, all of us. And we got back on that field, and they didn't have a chance. We really crushed them in the second half. Mike and I were talking earlier today about something, and he even said, he goes, they just couldn't run with us. But it was that moment that he just brought to everyone, right in your heart. You just felt it. And that's what he was all about. I mean, he still impacts me today. I know he impacts a lot of his other teammates today too. So I'm very proud to be able to say that he was my friend, and I will never forget him. Henry, I'll pass it on to you.
Great, thanks. And thanks for the great words there. And Connor, again, thanks for letting me chime in here. So, for those, I haven't met Henry Bartlett here, class of 2007. And just quick background, I guess George Boiardi was my host on my recruiting trip, and one of the senior captains when I was a freshman. And, I know, a lot of us on this call know George, or hopefully you know him well through his story and just through, our Cornell Lacrosse family. But, again, keeping it brief, everything you've heard about George is true. He's, some of the things I think about, are just his passion, right? Similar to Eamon, it sounds like just his love for Cornell lacrosse and love for life, and you could just feel that every day. His leadership, right? He was the captain of the team and the person everyone looked up to. And just coming in as a freshman, he was that guy that you say, gosh, if I could work hard, maybe one day I can be like that, right? He was the man and the person you wanted to be like. And also just hard work. I think everyone thinks they work hard, right? But when you see someone like George, you say, shoot, that's how you're supposed to work, right? And that's what the hard hat's all about. It's so great to see that in the locker room, and a good daily reminder for all of us just what hard work's all about. And I remember we used to call it was when we had the football lines, but working hard between the 30s, that was really George's space, and we switched it to working hard between the 21. So that's what he was all about. But similar to Eamon, just really just such a loyal and great friend and teammate. And some of the sayings that I always kind of remind myself and try to remind myself of daily is just well done is better than well said, right? It's something that I think we all try to live by, leading through our actions, right? And then the second phrase is just anything we touch in our life, whether it's on the field or other areas of our life, trying to leave it in a better place than when we found it. So I know he inspires so many of us to this day. It's such a good thing to see, just his influence on all of us and the program, and it's just tremendous. And happy to chat with anyone on the current team or over the years more offline when we have more time. And also, I know probably most of you have read John Gordon's book, but some fabulous stories there too, which is terrific to see. But Matt Norfolk, I think handed it off to you now.
All right, Henry, thanks. Coach Busick, thanks for the opportunity for me to say a few words about Jimmy Case. I'm honored. And so I'm a lawyer. I'll try to, Mr. Webster, be 3-4 minutes. It may go into 5, but so I'll give you my best shot here. So, he died too soon. We've all heard that quote, right? Youth is relative, but it means a person died young, before old age. It also means a person had potential for doing so much more with his life, but with death cannot do so, right? Jimmy died too soon. He was too young. He was 55 years old when he moved on, and he had great potential to do such more. I know that for sure. We can only dream what Jimmy would have done, in other words, at home, his community at Cornell, of course, with the Cornell lacrosse program and family. But I know one thing for certain. Whatever Jimmy would have done as he grew old would have been great. And how do I know this? Well, because I've only seen Jimmy do great things. I've known him since the fall of 1991 when I arrived at Cornell, and I spent a lot of time with him, pretty much at the end of the bench, all right, watching some games. My good friend Anthony Pavone, he'll remind me of this, and he does often. It wasn't my preferred way maybe to hang out with Jimmy, but maybe it was meant to be, because I forged a great, long-lasting relationship with Jimmy C. And I'm sure everyone here did, and if you didn't, I'm telling you, you'd want to. So as a trainer, Jimmy's examination of injuries, diagnosis, treatment, they were always spot on. And boy, he could tape an ankle unlike anyone in the country. Whether at Cornell or here up in Lake Placid, no one taped me but Jim. His ankle wraps felt like a fitted sock. Everyone knew this. He would have a line of people behind him at Placid. The old guys, a lot of times Dandler would be there, Chris Dandler, 95. He had to get wrapped up for whatever reason at any game. And then they have these young bucks up there waiting for him. The other trainers, I felt sort of bad for him. I'd ask for a bag of ice or something because everyone wanted to go with Jimmy. And when you're getting taped, you're getting wrapped, getting some ice from Jimmy, he'd ask how your family was. And he'd bring you up to the speed about the program. He'd talk about past players. He knew where virtually everyone was. And he knew what they were up to. That's Jimmy. And when it came to, more serious injuries, that's maybe when he was at his best. Say there's a diagnosis, when he had a diagnosis of a serious injury, he would tell the players what that injury was, and he did it with such poise and coolness. He didn't beat around the bush, there was no BS, but he gave the news candidly how serious the injury was, whether it be a torn ACL, fractured bone. A lot of us up here being old get the Achilles popped, or any other serious injury. but the way he broke the news, it put you at ease. Even if it was a season-ending injury or a career-ending injury, he had a calm voice that put it all in perspective. You're seriously injured, may or may not be able to play again, but you know what? You're still part of the Cornell Lacrosse team. You're still part of the family, and things get better. Now, he didn't necessarily say that, but the way he delivered what the injury was and what your prospect, how you're going forward, it kind of puts you at ease. I wasn't there that dark day when George passed, but I heard that Jimmy was amazing with his response and his valiant efforts to save George. And that's Jimmy. If there was such a thing, he would have been a first-team All-American trainer. But I tell you this, Jimmy was also a first-team All-American coach and advisor. So forgive me, my current teammates, I won't disclose your names, but I want to just give a story or two. So when he needed to, he'd give us a nudge to make an attitude adjustment or say, hey, this is how you're going to be a better player mentally or physically. But he also guided us, encouraged us to stay strong if we weren't going well with the lineups or playing time. Sometimes you'd end it with a joke or a pat on the back. But that was Jimmy. And I'll give two stories. I remember one time, it was 1995, I was in the game the first quarter against UPenn. I was getting shelled. I couldn't stop a ball, frankly. So I got pulled. By the way, Coach Brandon ended up being a good call. And I got my place down at the end of the bench with Jimmy. All he did is he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, I remember saying something like this, like, hey, it's all right. It's not good out there. Nothing you could do. And those few words, I'm 20-something years old, had such a positive effect. And yes, we went on to win that game, which also helped. So he would also give advice on how to get out of Coach Moran's doghouse, or advice how to stay out of the doghouse in the first place. There was one time in 1994, we're at spring break, and again, Coach Moran, this was a long time ago, so things have gotten better. But we're doing spring break in Hofstra. That's kind of giving an indication what the season was. And we were to play some scrimmages. So one night, a few of the guys who will remain unnamed and I stayed out too long at an establishment called Bogart's in Hempstead. And Judd Housen, 1995, we must have listened to him play Rocky Raccoon for 23 times. Well, it got late, but we had a morning practice at 8 a.m. the next day. And that's where we're met by Jimmy C at the field. It's as if he knew what was going on. He could tell we were tired or perhaps maybe a little hungover, and he knew immediately our situation. He told three of us to stay away from Coach. We looked like hell. We smelled worse. And he told one of us to hit the shower. Jimmy had us covered that day. Now, did he condone bad behavior or misappropriate behavior? No, he didn't do that. But he also recognized when he needed a break or a second chance. And then lastly, as a trainer, Jimmy treated everyone the same way on the team, whether an all-Ivy League player, a freshman, or someone who never even saw the field game day. And I've got one more thing I want to talk about Jimmy, then I'll hand it over to Coach Busick. Jimmy was he's a first-team All-American good guy and friend. The fact that we're taking a moment today is proof of that. Not once did I ever hear Jimmy say a disparaging word about anyone. He wasn't in the rumor mill. He didn't do any of that. That wasn't his nature. A couple of times he may have dumped on a Princeton guy or a Syracuse alum on Classic, but other than that, there was nothing. And then, we haven't seen him for a while, but alumni weekend or a Classic, Jimmy greeted every one of us old timers like we never left Cornell. Shake your hand, ask how you're doing, how your kids are doing, usually know their name. And then he usually made a wisecrack. Up in class, he made a few. But it's usually about your buddies, your close teammates. I remember one time, Ben Hutchin, 1995, he says, where's Hutchin? Has his jet landed yet? Hutchin ended up doing pretty well in the futures. And then there was another one, Dandler, he's a pretty intense guy, 1995. And he said, I remember saying, is Dandler really in the parking lot in the car getting psyched up for a Masters 2 game? Well, he was. So, Jimmy had a dry sense of humor, it made us all laugh, and that's why we wanted to be around him. It's unfortunate that future players will never get to meet him and really know Jimmy Case or have that college lacrosse experience so much better because of Jimmy C. So Jimmy Case, he'll be deeply missed. He's a legend. He's Cornell Lacrosse. Jimmy, he liked the pints. Jimmy C, we love you. All right, Connor, take it over.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all your words. Certainly three of our greatest of all time. You know, Jimmy never stepped between the lines once for us, but certainly left a lasting impact on us all. And those three guys and many others have kind of set the stage for who we are as a program today and moving forward. And so thank you guys for taking the time to get on and talk about those guys and start us off on the right note. Next, I want to kind of move into a state of the program. You know, obviously a pretty unique fall in the way we're going about things. But kind of as we go into the fall, I'd be remiss if I didn't, recognize the class of 2020 and a group that led this team in a really respectable manner. It's a class that lost their first few games of play in the door as a freshman, and then won their last 5 on the way out. You know, they set the standard, they led this group incredibly well, and through it all, really left a legacy or a foundation for this 21 team to start to build off of. So at some point in the future here, we're going to make sure we recognize them in a significant way and have a senior day of sorts, but thought I'd be remiss to start this any other way. As for this year, our captains for this season, we'll have 2 returning, and Jeff Teat and John Donville, and we'll be welcoming 2 new seniors with Joe Bartolotto and John Piatelli as captains. Obviously leading through a pretty tumultuous time right now, and with a lot of adversity going on, we've got all the confidence in the world in those guys and the rest of the senior group to really push this group forward and make this a great season. On the staff front, we've, I guess, officially hired 2 new members. One is not new to our staff, nor is he a stranger to Ithaca. We're excited to elevate Paolo Safari to a full-time role. He was our volunteer assistant last year, grew up in Ithaca, had his mother and 2 uncles play for the program, so he's certainly no stranger to our program. Played his college ball down the road at Cuse and was a senior captain for them, and has had coaching stops at Cortland and Binghamton up to this point. He did a great job with our face-off unit last year, and he's really going to control. He's going to coordinate the middle of the field for us. So ride, clears, face-offs, ground balls, and mentality. So we're excited to welcome him into a full-time role. On the volunteer side, to take his spot, we hired Torrin Varn, again, another Ithaca native, played his college ball at Hofstra. Really, really fortunate the way this worked out. To be honest, to hire a volunteer in a time like this, where with the NCAA dead period, they can't really make a whole lot of money going out and working events. It was pretty fortuitous that he happened to be in Ithaca as an Ithaca native. His latest stop was at Ithaca College as a volunteer last year. And so we're excited to add him to the staff. He will work primarily with our goalies and assist with the offense. Up to this point, he's made stops at Stevenson in Division III, Mount St. Mary's, and Hofstra, actually, on the women's side. So we're fortunate to add Torrin to our staff as well. This year, we'll be welcoming back a few 5th years, Jeff Teat being one that everybody has seen and knows about. More recently, we got okays on Patrick Carey and Cooper Telesco. We're still waiting on one more final okay. But really thankful to our support staff, our administration, for making this possible, for giving those guys that had their season cut too short another opportunity to come back and play it out on the field if they desired. So fortunate to have those guys back and excited to get them back in the spring after the leave of absence this fall. So kind of where we're at as a team, right? So basically the way we've been following the roadmap was laid out by the Ivy League. It's a phased reentry to activity, and it started in phase 0, which basically meant nothing in person. We couldn't have workouts, we couldn't have practice, we couldn't have individual sessions, 0 lacrosse, and we couldn't even, show up to campus and sit together. And so obviously the brand of Cornell Lacrosse is based on the connectivity of our team, the connectivity of our players. And so certainly that was challenged a little bit. There was a tough time where our guys couldn't necessarily go and hang out together in the way that they normally would. But a ton of credit to those guys for finding creative solutions, finding different ways to do things together, to bring the freshmen in, to hang out together, and to continue to grow those bonds. They came up with creative solutions that included a lot of activities, a lot of stuff that we wouldn't normally be doing in the fall, but with a little more time, certainly allowed time for golf or hikes or meals or basically you name it. These guys found a way to, within the compact, do what they needed to do to adhere to the standard, but also continue to push this thing forward, make sure the freshmen felt comfortable, and make sure that all these classes were bonding together. Throughout that time, we had to find a way to use it the most effectively, right? If we're not in the weight room, if we're not on the field, how do we build and start preparing for the 2021 season? So what we kind of fell back on is trying to build our culture in the best way possible, trying to solidify our culture and trying to educate our men on, Cornell Lacrosse, but also on the broader world. And so we were fortunate to have so many alumni speakers that came back and spoke to our group to help solidify that culture piece. As Frenchie mentioned, he came on 9/11 and spoke to our guys. Usually Coach Moran comes and meets with our guys in front of the plaque behind the locker room and kind of talks about Eamon's impact on our program. But it was great to have Frenchie on over a virtual format to talk to our guys. And the interesting part that stuck out to us was how this culture has been cemented over so many years. You heard the story from Tom Marino, and Frenchie told a similar story when he was on with our guys. The connectivity of this group has been the standard for a long time, and it's been the benchmark. So we're fortunate to have a culture that's not changing. We have a very true identity, and we know who we are, and we believe that's kind of our competitive advantage. We had Stenger Nudd come back to talk about his time in the Marine Corps and specifically in training and how our culture related to that, and how his time with Cornell Lacrosse ultimately set him up for success in those trainings and to graduate near the top of his class in every one of his courses. We had John Gordon come back to talk about dealing with uncertainty. Everything that we're doing right now is uncertain. What we're building for is not guaranteed. And so having him on to talk about dealing with that, about the importance of winning the day and staying positive, making sure you're taking strides forward, and the importance of grit was pretty special. And we capped off that series with Mitch Belisle coming in to talk about, again, handling adversity and, his experiences when George passed and being a freshman on that team, and understanding how that team dealt with a very significant blow and how they managed to come together and solidify that culture around the adversity, and talk about ways that in our current climate, we can possibly do that. To widen our scope a little bit outside of our program, we've also been trying to educate as much as we can on inequality and systemic racism. We were fortunate to have Matt Pinto come back and join the team and have a discussion. We were fortunate to have Nat St. Laurent come back and have a discussion. And Nat's actually taken over the coaches organization group for diversity and inclusion. So they had some great talking points for our guys. We've had some team discussions. And then on top of that, we're fortunate to be a part of a 5-part lecture series that is a West Campus initiative through Cornell on justice for all and inequality. So we're 3 lectures in, and it sparked some great conversation and debate and just awareness about our greater world. And lastly, we had an Ivy League wide initiative on Monday evening to talk about the Native American tradition and honor and celebrate that part of our game that sometimes gets forgotten when they introduce this to us. So, for a while there, we were trying to make the best of our situation. As of last Monday, we finally moved into phase 1. And so we were able to start our workouts. And anybody that's been a part of this program in the last 30 years understands the importance of a guy like Coach Howley to our program, how he holds our guys to a high standard, how he sets our culture apart by putting it in action, right? It's never what we're doing, but how we're doing it. And he certainly sets the standard for our guys every day. So we're fortunate to get back with him. We're working out in groups of 10 or less right now, and basically trying to make the most of it. Again, slow build. It's going to take a little time for us to get reacclimated to weights and things along those lines, but I'm fortunate to be doing it with him every step of the way. As of this morning, it's exciting to hear that we are moving into phase 2, which means we can start playing some lacrosse. Obviously, we've got some hurdles between the time we can actually get on the field, little things like equipment and solidifying our groups and making a plan. So we're excited to return to the field on Monday and really kick off this fall and start our build. With that being said, we only have till Thanksgiving with our guys on campus, so we understand it's going to be a little abbreviated. But with that in mind, we're making the most of every day. We understand that nothing's promised to us this year. We know that our administration's working hard to make everything happen and certainly get us out on the field, and we made some great strides so far. But just excited to be with this group. It's a group that's filled with great leaders, great teammates, and guys that are dedicated to this cause and are really driving this thing forward. So we've been fortunate to be surrounded by such, incredible people, and we're really looking forward to getting out on the field on Monday and starting the lacrosse side of this build. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it over to John Webster so you guys can hear from the players on this fall and how we've been building.
Thanks, Coach. Great job. And this program is in great hands with you and your staff at the helm. We very much appreciate all you're doing for this program. So we have 4 outstanding student athletes with us this evening. I'll introduce all of them and then give a couple questions to each of them. The first up is a 6-foot, 185-pound freshman midfielder from the St. Michael's School in Toronto, number 61, Andrew Dalton. Second, a sophomore. He's 6'3", 195-pound midi from the Haddonfield Memorial High School, number 2, Aiden Blake. A 6'1", 195-pound goaltender from Victor, New York, number 22, Chase Erlin. And our senior representative, a 6', 195-pound attackman from the St. Sebastian School in Rentrum, Massachusetts, a captain, number 41, John Piatelli. So Andrew Dalton, we're going to start with you. You had lots of options. You were a talented high school player. There were lots of schools that were after your services, but you picked Cornell. Can you talk to us about why you chose Cornell?
Yeah. So the biggest reason I picked Cornell was just the love that I felt right away. I stepped on campus for my first visit, and everyone was going out of their way and just wanted to kind of take me under their wing and make sure I understood what it's all about here. And then gradually I found out that it's just all about loving your teammates and loving doing what we do every day. Everyone on this team has everyone's back, and it was obvious to me, like, who wouldn't want to play with guys like that have your back at all the times, and then throw in the piece of competing for championships, and it was a no-brainer for me.
Great, thank you. That's great. How about so you're living over on North Campus, right?
Yep.
And what's your favorite part about being over there?
I just love how central everything is. We got our food right across the road, and then all my buddies right beside me. So it's awesome to be so close to them and be able to hang out with them. And then I'm no chef, but we got a nice little kitchen, so good space for my cereal.
Well, I hope you feel the same way when the snow starts flying, but I'm sure being a Toronto native that you're used to that.
Yep.
All right, Aiden Blake, sophomore. So far, how has Cornell and your experience with the team lived up to what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, so coming in, I think you have a lot of expectations for this program. Very storied program. Lacrosse, a lot of success. And, as Dalt just said, on your visits and everything, you get to meet all the guys, and everyone's just a really good dude. So coming in, I think for me, the biggest thing lacrosse-wise was you knew everyone was going to work hard, but you don't realize how hard they're willing to push each other. And everyone's diving for loose balls. You're fighting with your teammates in the field over just drills, just want to win. And then I think coming off of that, after these fights or whatever, you're going at it on the field, you come back in and everyone's best friends again in the locker room. So I think they don't stress. I mean, they try to tell you, but it's hard to stress enough how good everyone on the team is. Just everyone's a good dude and everyone's there for you no matter what. So I think Cornell so far has exceeded my expectations in that front.
Great. And can you talk to us a little bit about your workouts this fall? How have those been going?
Yeah, so workouts are definitely different. As Coach said earlier, it's groups of 10. So the energy is definitely a little different. Instead of having 50 guys screaming at each other in a room, getting each other fired up for workouts and stuff, you have to do it in smaller groups. So I think a big focus of a lot of people is keeping that energy up, staying focused on the little details and everything. Beside that, I think it's just getting used to wearing a mask, which it's tough for everyone. Everyone's struggling with it, but it's just another obstacle we have to overcome. So it's no big deal in the end, but it's definitely different this year. But I think we're slowly getting there, and we're just doing the best with what we have.
Thanks, Aiden. And now our goaltender, junior Chase Erlin. Chase, it's been a crazy 6 months for everybody, but what's helped you stay positive in the past few weeks and months?
Yeah, definitely. There's been a lot of adversity for everyone on this call and our program, and everyone's lives have kind of been, flipped upside down. But I'd say the most constant thing in my life, besides my family, is just been this team, this program. That's kind of been my driving force behind everything that I've done. The past 6 months or so is just kind of focus on getting back to the guys here and working as hard as you possibly can back home. And once getting back here, it was definitely an opportunity that not all college teams had. We were, one of the lucky colleges who could actually come back, even though we might not have been together all at once. It was definitely some sort of return to normalcy as far as just being on campus and gradually seeing guys and reconnecting with them and then moving along into the workouts. That was another big step for us, was returning again to something normal that we would usually do. And then hopefully lacrosse starting up soon. And it's really just been the love of the team and our program that has been driving me and keeping me motivated and ready to go.
So Chase, I think pretty much everybody in this room knows what the hard hat is, but can you tell us what the hard hat is and what it means to you to be chosen to carry the hard hat this year?
Yeah. So the hard hat is obviously a big part of our program. It kind of represents the ideals and the way we want to handle our business and carry our program and our culture. A relentless work ethic, competitive all the time, being there for your teammates. The things that kind of have been established by many of the people on this Zoom call, the great players and teammates that have been a part of this program, is kind of exemplified into an object, into the hard hat. Fortunately, I was honored to be chosen to carry it this year, and it's pretty tough to put into words. But it's just knowing that you're kind of carrying that long red line, those pillars of our program, what everybody on our team is always trying to do, with you all the time, to all workouts, games, team stuff. And it's, definitely serves as a constant reminder of the people who've laid the foundation and hopefully the marks that you're going to leave for the program to come. So it's still tough for me to describe. It's a great honor. But a quote that was mentioned earlier, and that was one of George's favorites and has been a big part of our program. Well done is better than well said. I'm just going to let our team's effort and my effort this year kind of speak for that. And hopefully you guys, all the people on this Zoom can witness that in the springtime.
Thanks, Chase. And I certainly not unique to you, but I know your mom and dad are important people in your lives. And was there a comment they made about when you got tapped to carry the hard hat?
Yeah, they were pretty proud of me. I think it speaks volumes to kind of how the way I was raised, both of them being teachers and coaches back home. And so they were definitely very proud of me. And, now it was my dad kind of talked to me. He said, yeah, like you have this honor now, but, you have to earn it every day. Kids are looking up to you. And so now that you have it, it's time to really start putting in the work and kind of showing those principles, those hard hat principles.
Thanks again, Chase. Senior Captain John Piatelli. John, can you describe what it's like to walk out of the locker room past those plaques that mean so much to us, and taking the field on game day at Sholkoff?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just a privilege to be in the locker room for starters. It's an amazing group of guys in there, and there's been so many great alumni that have come before us. So I think just being in there and feeling that energy with the guys around you is just surreal. As far as going to walking out for game day, I think walking out, we know how much work we put in during the week. So we're confident and just so pumped up to be able to go show the world how hard we work and, going to go kick some ass on that field. And then when we kind of walk out, I make sure to always tap those 3 plaques. I think, Jay, Eamon, and George mean so much to the program, and they're pretty much the heartbeat of this program. And I think I've built a good relationship with George throughout my time here, just hearing stories and finding ways to connect, that I always make sure to tap those signs and then, the energy is palpable when we get in tight twos and sprint on the field. So it's definitely really special and something I'll always remember.
Awesome. Awesome. So every class has a kind of unique culture, is unique unto itself. Can you talk to us about what type of mark your class wants to leave on this program?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my class is really strong. We all have a really good relationship with each other, and we're really a tight-knit group. So we want to take advantage of that and just be unified front and be leaders to all the sophomores and freshmen. We want to carry on the tradition, make sure they know the tradition and culture so they can carry it on after us. But we definitely want to leave it better than we found it, as we talk about a lot. Just making sure that, last year we were 5-0 and had a pretty good run, but this year we want to even elevate our game even more. We're always looking to get better, always looking to improve upon, some of our weaknesses or places that we're not as good. So leaving our mark, we just want to, bring this program to new heights, continue to, reach for, the stars, basically, reach for a national championship, continue to, bring this program to new heights and just carry on the tradition that was set out before us.
Thanks, John. And I've done about 50 of these Zoom town halls now, and every time our student athletes are the stars of the show, and our coaches talk all the time about recruiting character almost as much as they recruit athleticism, or maybe as much. And you guys are certainly 4 great examples of that. Thank you very much, Coach. Thank you for letting me be here and do that. That was a lot of fun. And now we're going to hand it to Jordan Stevens, who's going to talk to us about how we're going to land the next batch of great Cornell lacrosse players. Jordan Stevens.
John, thanks for that. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. A quick thanks to those guys on the player panel, Johnny, Chase, Aiden, and Andrew. Obviously great ambassadors for our program. Just to touch on a little bit of what Connor led into with where the team is at right now, we're really fortunate to have built this team from inside the locker room first, with that focus on character and compete level and work ethic and the things that John just mentioned. This time is definitely different. It's challenging. It's trying. Hopefully those 4 guys give you a look into our locker room right now and show you that we have the people to handle this. Plain and simple. We've got the guys who are able to take advantage of every day and keep a positive attitude and continue to work. So that's just my piece on where we're at right now. So again, thank you to those 4 guys who joined in. To transition, last time I was on here on the last town hall, we gave you an update on our incoming class. Now they're our freshmen. They've been here for about 2 months now. We remain excited about their talent and potential, but we're still most excited about their character. Again, their resilience, their compete level, and their bonding over the last 2 months did nothing but further prove to us that they truly belong. They did not get a normal introduction to college or to Cornell that maybe we all had at one point, but they stayed positive. They've used this time to come together as a group. They've done a good job through the first few workouts so far that we all know can be pretty challenging. We're proud of them. We look forward to the leaders on our team shaping them more and more as the year goes on, for sure. So before I give you guys a look into the next group of Big Red that we're bringing in, I think it's relevant to just give you an idea as to what the recruiting environment has been like since March. Obviously, all of our lives have been shaken up and things are different. Things are different. But recruiting is probably one of the areas where we've seen the biggest changes. Because of COVID, high school seasons were canceled. The summer club season was significantly altered. And the NCAA instituted what's called a dead period back in March, and that's going to run through the new year. That means that there's no face-to-face contact. There's no in-person evaluations. There's no campus visits. There's no home visits. So it can be tough to develop that personal relationship that we are all so fortunate to go through in that process. So, again, what previously were conversations in the office, now we're over Zoom. What used to be watching a player, how he interacted with his teammates on the field, became us just watching it on a screen. And, like many things in life, like I mentioned, you don't have to look far for adversity or obstacles. that meant, 10 to 14 hours a day for our staff, watching film all summer, 7 days a week. And definitely led to some sore eyeballs, staring at a screen for that long, but we battled through countless hours on the phone with coaches, trying to understand who these young men are as teammates, as leaders, to fill that gap again of, feeling like we were missing out on watching them in person or having those face-to-face meetings. And again, just trying to create that personal connection that makes the recruiting process at Cornell different, and something that, again, we're also fortunate to have experienced at some point. So those were the challenges, right? Those were the downs and the adversity that we had to overcome. The ups or the positives involved us coming off of an undefeated season, right? Shortened, albeit, but having Cornell in the spotlight to some degree definitely just gets us more players interested than maybe coming off of just a standard year. Obviously, our standards are always high, but last year we were on a pretty impressive track. And it would have been easy for us to get distracted by maybe some of the flashier players or people who might not be fits for Cornell truly or down the line, especially after the momentum that our staff change created. We felt that it really propelled us forward to have Connor and I and Paulo at the helm here. And, really for us, we saw that as a way to stick to who we are. And like we teach our team to do, and we leaned into this adversity, leaned into this change, and through any ups and downs, we always stick to our core values. And we really felt that more than anything, that was our competitive edge, to have such a clear identity of who we are looking for, of what we need to do to get there. We did our best to outwork every staff that we could throughout the summer, to focus on building relationships, and to make sure that we did our absolute best to show a lot of the families on this call the love that we all got in our recruiting process and that you all experienced in your time at Cornell. And, really the best way that we've been able to phrase that is, as challenging as this place will be, because it will push you, it will get you towards your end. Those challenges will never exceed the love that we're going to give our guys, our players, our recruits, our teammates. And, all in all, we're proud of the work that we've done to continue, to do our best to recruit in a way that honors you all and honors the tradition that you've worked to create. And again, investing in meaningful relationships above all else. So as we learn and develop as coaches, that's all we vow to do, right? That's all that we can do is, again, stick to who we are. We'll learn from our mistakes, we'll progress, we'll move forward. But like we did this summer, through any ups and downs, those core values will guide us to keep the integrity of this locker room intact. Because above all else, that's what separates Cornell Lacrosse from every other program. That's what makes this program, right, the number one program in college lacrosse, is that locker room over time, from Mike French to Tom Marino to Henry Bartlett to Matt Norfolk to everybody that you heard from, the four guys on the player panel, right? Even though names change over time, even though there's different people in those lockers and on that field, that identity stays true and the integrity of this group holds together. So that's what we're most proud of. And to transition a little bit to the part that you probably all want to hear about most is the next crop of Big Red, our current high school senior class. Once we are allowed to formally announce this group to you all, we will, just from a rules perspective. But we're proud to say right now that we have 11 young men committed in that senior class. Some of those guys are listening in right now. They're working on their applications. So guys, if you're on there, get them done, get them in, and we'll move this forward. But it's a group that's come together over time that has plenty of ties to the Big Red and to a lot of people on this screen. So 3 young men who have played for some former Big Red greats in Todd Francis, Chris Packard, and Ryan McClay. 2 young men from Smithtown, New York. So Mike LaRocco, Fresh Shower, John Gordon, Robbie Pinnell. If you guys are listening in, we got another or a couple more hometown boys coming in. So get used to making the trip up to support those guys. 2 young men with connections to some of our best Big Red from the 70s and 80s, and close family friends of Mike French, Tim Goldstein, and Charlie Muller. Our first player, or excuse me, our most recent player from Rhode Island ever since JJ Gilbane. And oddly enough, JJ, I saw you on here before. This young man is also coming to Cornell from Deerfield, so you're blazing a good path there behind your brother. A tough defender from Syosset, New York. That's going to give you all some flashbacks of Thomas Keith. A young man from Colorado whose parents were both Cornell engineering students, whose father was a dual sport athlete who played for Coach Moran. By the way, Coach, figuring out Zoom, that was big time for tonight. So that was the first big win of the night. And last but not least, a young man from the Virginia, DC area who coming into the summer and throughout the summer was one of the more sought after uncommitted players heading into that recruiting time frame. He's got a cousin who's on the Big Red women's team. So a lot of ties to who we're bringing in. Again, above all else, they are cultural fits. But we think there's some pretty damn good players in there too. So we're proud of that group. Obviously, again, they're going to go through challenges here. They're going to bond together like all of our classes of Big Red do. But we're proud of the way that group has come together and proud of what's gotten them to this point. So then to our high school junior class. I won't give as much of a detailed teaser to that group. We've got plenty of time for you guys to get to know them over the next year and a half or so. I say this humbly, but we feel strongly that we've put together one of, if not the best classes in the country. Our criteria are definitely different than most places, but through a lot of hard work over the summer and into this September and October, we've won a lot of recruiting battles against the ACC, against the rest of the Ivy League, against the Big Ten, getting practically all of the young men that were at the top of our list heading into September. So long story short, we're grateful to be working hard to keep this locker room, filled with hardworking young men who appreciate the history and the tradition that you all created. It's a responsibility that we take incredibly seriously. And again, you all got a quick glimpse of who this team is right now with John, Chase, Aiden, and Andrew Dalton getting on here tonight. But on the whole, this is a group that it's really easy to be proud of, both as a coach and as an alum. These guys operate in a way that respects what you have all done in our past. And again, it's proud to love. It's easy to love those guys, and I'm proud to love them. Lastly, it's my pleasure to pass it over to Coach Paolo Ciferri. It's going to be a first introduction for some of you to him, and I'll let him speak for himself to create that first impression. But I couldn't be prouder to call him a friend, to work with him. We on this screen are all lucky that he shares the responsibility of pushing this program forward. He already is doing a great job. I know he will continue to do an incredible job. But thank you all for the time tonight. And Paulo, I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Well, let me start by sharing my screen here. I've got a presentation for you guys. All right. Here we go. First and foremost, thank you for spending some time with us tonight. I want to introduce myself. For those of you guys who I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Paolo Ciferri. This will be my second year on staff here at Cornell. Last year I was in the volunteer assistant role, and one of my biggest responsibilities here is the face-off unit. So I'll get into that a little bit more momentarily, but want to talk about, a quick story and a little bit about my background before we get into that. So being a native Ithacan and playing lacrosse, it really didn't take long for me to get a taste of the Big Red. Like Connor mentioned earlier, I was fortunate enough to have a mother who was in the women's program and two uncles who had successful careers on the men's side of things. And between those three, they really didn't let me miss a Big Red event growing up. So I met a bunch of you, but I want to share a quick story, and a quick memory that kind of stands out from my childhood. Specifically the 2001 Final Four. My family had a tradition of going to the Final Four every year, but the 2001 Final Four was special because it was going to be the 25th anniversary for my uncle's 1976 national championship winning team. So a lot of guys on this call I met that weekend, a lot of legends of the program. And, you know, at the young age of 7, I just wanted to go to the fan zone and play with the fiddlesticks. But I'm really thankful that my mom made me shake all those hands because if it weren't for her, I would have never had the opportunity of meeting Eamon McEnany. I couldn't tell you, you know, what our conversation consisted of or even really what he looked like. But what I could tell you is how important and how excited my mom was to have me meet Eamon. And, you know, that experience, all right, and learning more about Eamon as time has gone on has allowed me to understand why that introduction was so important. You know, I'm sure I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know by now, but the people, the amazing people of this program are what makes this program so special and being a part of it. So I'm looking forward to, you know, getting to meet more of you as time goes on here. But I do want to talk a little bit about the face-off specifically, the new rule changes, and how we plan on training to be successful at the X come springtime. First, these face-off guys for the last decade or so have kind of changed up their skill sets to be successful at the highest level. You know, you saw the introduction of guys putting their knee down and using what's called the motorcycle grip. As you can see in this picture, the motorcycle grip is simply flopping over your top hand to grip the stick, similarly to riding a motorcycle, seeing the handlebars. The point in using this technique is getting your body as close to the ball as you possibly can and being able to, once that whistle blows, drive and clamp down on the ball and push it into the turf really aggressively and with strength. And that this face-off style kind of allows you to do that. I'm going to show you a quick video here of one of our junior face-off guys. His name is Mitchell Rothstein. You're going to see in this video real quickly how Mitch uses this technique to get off his knee and put a lot of pressure on his right hand and really drive that ball into the turf. And I'll pause it for you guys in a second, but I'm going to let it run once.
Go.
So on that whistle, or in this case on the go call, right, Mitch gets off that right knee. And if I pause it right here, you can see all the weight from his hips up, right? All this weight from his hips up is all on this right hand, right? Sure, there's some balance on his toes, but a lot of pressure on that right hand allows him to clamp down on that ball with a lot of strength. I'll play it one more time just so you guys can see it before we kind of move on here.
Go.
All right. These guys have become masters of their craft, right, over the last decade or so of you know, really nailing down this technique and this style. You know, since guys have gotten so good at it, you can see guys throw 2 or 3 moves from time to time, and it can lead to that longer chess match that you see so frequently on TV. What the new rules have kind of led us to is the hope that, you know, maybe we can get this ball out a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit sooner. You know, you can see right here that this is very similar to the early 2000s or even before then. And what you call this position is standing neutral grip, right? So there's no more knee down, there's no more motorcycle grip. And what the real difference here is the posture that, you know, the pre-whistle posture, I should say. So prior, you had that position where you were really strong and you could put a lot of pressure on your right hand pretty quickly. Now, all that weight is on your hand or on your feet, excuse me. And you can see his hands and arms are kind of dangling, right? So just to give you a quick demo of what this looks like, it's very much different in the sense that you're not clamping down with such power. And you'll see that right here. Right, so if I slow-mo this or pause it in a certain area, right here. Oh, excuse me, let me run that back just a bit. All right, you can see as opposed to where all that as opposed to the last technique where all that pressure was on Mitch's right hand. All right, there's very little. You can see all that weight's on his feet. All right, and you know, his hands are still working here, and there's still a little bit of pressure there, but it's just not the same driving of the ball into the ground. Very simply put, you know, the point in this is hopefully we see a little bit more of a quick rake or a quick clamp, and the ball gets out, you know, seconds after the whistle is blown. And you know, the thoughts are that that style, or this style, excuse me, will lead to, you know, ground ball play scenarios as opposed to that technical chess match that I was just talking about prior. Let me push forward here. All right. And, you know, I guess the main question is here, well, how do you change? Like, how do you train differently? What's going to be the biggest difference? And while that, you know, that action at the X on game day is going to change, what we do in our training is not going to change a whole lot. We believe that, you know, our face-off guys need to be competitive lacrosse players. We believe that, you know, they need to be able to play offense at times, defense at times, as well as take the draw. So in practice, we put them through those scenarios and we make them play in those possibly uncomfortable positions. Sure, we're going to schedule some time in which our face-off guys will compete against each other, and we will absolutely be working on the technique of the standing neutral grip to make sure that they're comfortable come game day. But we'll also be working a whole lot on situational ground ball work, situational stick work, as well as some transitional pieces of the game of lacrosse. Like I said earlier, I'm really looking forward to getting to meet more of you. So please, if you have any questions about, you know, the new face-off rules or how we plan on preparing to be successful, feel free to reach out. I would really appreciate that. And I do want to thank you guys for your time one more time and say I'm just really looking forward to seeing everyone in person, hopefully come spring, but if not, in the near future. Thank you again. Connor, I'm back to you.
Thanks, Coach. Outstanding job breaking that down. Thanks, Coach Stevens, for walking everybody through the recruiting. I think, you know, in wrapping this call up, I'd be remiss if we did finish on a note of gratitude, right? This staff that I get the opportunity to work with every day is as good as it gets. These guys work their absolute tails off to make sure this is the best program and a program that you guys can be proud to be a part of, that honors the tradition that you guys left. The players, right? You got a chance to hear from 4 of them. You know, this is a group that's really impressive, and dealing with some serious adversity as 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They're managing this, and they're managing it as well as I've ever seen. You know, doing a job that they're understanding that, hey, you know, there's some restrictions here. There's some stuff that maybe they're not always pleased with, but at the same time, they understand there's a reason to keep us here together, to keep us going forward, to keep us working out, to keep us practicing together. And so they embrace that. They're managing it as well as we could possibly ask and understand that there's a purpose involved. Gratitude for our administration that are fighting to make sure that we can get to do the things that we want to do, that we're on campus, that we're getting close to playing lacrosse here, that we're working to have a spring season. All of those things, you know, are not lost on us. And lastly, the support of the alums. There's a reason that this place is the best family in college lacrosse. And so we appreciate the support from all of you guys in every way possible. And so, you know, with that being said, we couldn't be more excited to continue to build with this team. We hope that we get the opportunity to make you all proud when it comes game time in the spring. But we thank you all for joining us tonight. We miss seeing the Big Red family in person, and we certainly hope that we can do it in the near future and celebrate some wins together. So I will, for final words for this evening's town hall, I'll pass it over.
Hey, Coach.
Yes.
Coach, before we go to Andy Phillips, I've got a question in the chat room. It's a good question. And so I'd like to throw this to Coach Stevens. There's appreciation for the recruiting update, and we've had many great Canadian players over the years. Will it be harder to recruit Canadians with more competition, including Coach Milliman moving to JHU?
Thanks, John. You're right. It's a great question. We've got a longstanding tradition and history of getting some of the best young men and players from Canada. We feel confident that, over the last 5 years, Connor and I have built up the relationships that we need to continue our success there. Most specifically, and most recently, we've got 4 Canadians in our current freshman class, more already committed and on the way. Long-standing connections with the Hill Academy. Our dear friend Mike French is always a great help in Ontario. Connections to players out west and in BC. So we feel confident. We know that we're going to have to work for it, and we know that it's going to take the same type of effort that I explained previously. But we feel strongly that we're going to continue our success there. And I appreciate the question.
Hey, and one more thing, Connor. Before we go to Andy Phillips, we've got Athletic Director Andy Noel with us, and Andy just wanted to make a comment about our coaching staff.
Yes, Webby, thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't pretty much lay it on the line with the 120 people that are on the call. And my bottom line is we need to have the right leadership of the Big Red Lacrosse program. All good things happen when you have the right leaders, and we've been blessed with great leaders over time. But I'm here to tell you that with Connor and Jordan and now Paolo and the other folks working with the Big Red, we've got a phenomenal coaching staff. They are young, but their energy is incredible. Their talent is incredible. And I am fully committed to Big Red Lacrosse. People on the call that know me well know that one of my highest priorities in my life right now is to have a spring season. I want to see these guys play. I want to see them win. And for my money, we would have won the national championship last year. And if you read Inside Lacrosse, you would see the computer generated season and final to the season had the Big Red winning the national title. And I believe that would have happened. 5-0, beating Penn State and Ohio State on the road. We had a phenomenal team, and that time has passed. But I believe in this current group. I'm thrilled to have some of these other guys that they're taking this extra semester back with us. And none of this works. None of it stays the terrific tradition that it is without the right leadership. And we are really blessed right now with the right coaches, with the right energy, with the right drive and the right spirit. When you listen to Connor and Jordan speak, it's incredible how much they get it to a T, what Big Red Lacrosse has been all about since the early 70s. Frenchie and Tommy Marino, I know when you hear these guys speak, it's the same deal 50 years later. And so I'm really proud of these guys. I'm thrilled that they're leading this program. And by the way, we're going to dominate Canada ahead of Johns Hopkins, I can tell you that. So that's all I want to say. But it's great seeing so many friends and so many faces on this screen. And all the best to everybody involved.
Thanks, Andy. Back to you, Coach.
Andy, thanks for the kind words. We feel that support in spades, and it means a ton to us, so appreciate all you do for us. For the final word tonight, I want to kick it over to CLA President Andy Phillips to talk about 1021 and some of the breakout room stuff.
Okay, great. Can you hear me, Connor? Great. Okay, so just want to, again, thanks. Great job, everybody on the call. Just a reminder, a week from today, Wednesday, October 21st is our 1021 day, Cornell Lacrosse Day. Another opportunity for us to think about the gifts that we aim and the gifts we've been given by George. And we're going to be, as a team, reaching out to our alumni and supporters and asking for a financial pledge for the coming year. Okay, so everybody should expect to hear from our players. We're not going to have the same traditional phone-a-thon format, but I think we have some pretty good ideas, some creative solutions to make it a great night. And again, our focus is going to be on collecting pledges. Just a comment I want to make about when you're thinking about what you're going to pledge in terms of support for the coming year. We've got significant momentum here. Take yourself back to Monday, March 9, 2020. We're just coming off a win against Penn State, exciting victory. The polls come out, we're number 2 in the polls. Next up on our schedule is Yale. I mean, that was serious momentum. And then COVID shutdown hit, first the Ivy League and then the rest of the NCAA lacrosse community. Talk about a momentum killer. And then sometime later, a change in our coaching staff. Again, traditionally, you would think that's a momentum killer. I'm here to tell you, it's killed no momentum for us, none, zero. And you can hopefully get a palpable sense for that from the leaders on this call, that we've got serious momentum, both with the gentlemen we have in the locker room. We've got serious momentum with our recruiting effort. So just think about that when you're thinking about what to pledge. We want to keep the momentum going. All right. So thank you, everybody, for your participation in the call. We're going to have the decade breakout rooms. You'll have to leave this call and then join that call separately on that different link. And it just was, again, the coaches wanted to give everyone an opportunity to get together and be with each other this fall in the absence of alumni weekend. So hopefully it's a bit of an experiment. Hopefully it goes well. But before you guys leave, I just want to call out the decade captains who've been great in terms of helping us get this organized. Bruce Cohen, class of 65, Jonathan Levine, class of 76, Joe Lizio, class of 88, Mike LaRocco, class of 96, Henry Bartlett, class of 07, and then Matt Donovan, class of 15. Thank you, gentlemen, for being leaders and stepping forward. And I know if I'd ask anybody else in this call, they'd step forward as well. And that's what our culture is all about. So enjoy those breakout rooms. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Great to see everyone.
Let's go Red.
Hell yes.